Yeah, so I'd spent 10 years in the nonprofit sector really working to help folks achieve better outcomes. And at the root of so many challenges that our communities face is about being struggling to be able to make ends meet, struggling to have access, struggling to be able to have simple things that I think a lot of us take for granted. And it affects outcomes across the board. It affects your health outcomes, affects your education outcomes, affects your quality of life. And so the best tool we have for getting people out of poverty is a good job. And that's what we focus a lot of our work on at Dido, is about how do we help individuals get into well-paying jobs that allow them to have self-sufficiency. And if we can do that, we reduce the burden and the need for many of our other services in the city, and we're also growing our economy as a whole within Denver. And so Dido, as it exists right now, you kind of catching me at an interesting time because we have kind of a way in, and we're actually going through a strategic planning process to really carve this path going forward of where we're going. And so I'll give you a little preview on that. But in terms of where we have been and where we're operating right now, we have a number of different divisions. We have our business development work, which has a global team. It has our local small business development team that's really focused on providing assistance and financial resources for small businesses. We've got our DISBO team, which is focused on our small business opportunity. These are certified businesses, so you can be a certified minority or women-owned business, and we specifically try to focus a number of our city projects and our finances from the city anytime we're investing into a new infrastructure investment, a new planning a program to be able to ensure that we're dedicating a specific amount of those dollars to our certified businesses. In the last 5 years, we've contributed about $1.6 billion to those businesses that are certified. So it really shows how, with a dedicated effort, we can make a big impact in really building those businesses up. We also have our Nest division, which is specifically focused on neighborhood equity and stabilization. This work is about how do we do economic development but not displace everybody? How do we focus on communities that don't always have economic growth but still provide them valuable resources so they can spurn growth and spurn economic opportunity and create local jobs? So that work is really focused on that, and it utilizes federal dollars we get in the form of community development block grant funding to be able to invest in those neighborhoods. And then lastly, we have our workforce development team, which is really focusing on how do we help folks, one, get access. So if you're unemployed and you need to come into one of our 3 workforce centers, we'll help you file for unemployment. We'll help you navigate your job. We'll help you polish up your resume. We'll do some career coaching for you. All of those services, both online and in one of our locations. And then we have about 30 training partners that we work with to make sure that we're providing skills and certifications for people to get into the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow. We work closely with industry to understand where the needs are, and then we work closely with a number of training partners to make sure they have the funding to be able to invest in jobs. And right now we have a number of new grants focused on green jobs, focused on aerospace jobs, focused on some of the trades where we have some of the shortfalls around the community. So that's in a nutshell. Those are the 4 divisions that we operate out of Antietam. And really, just to simplify it for me, it goes back to our mission being one, an economy that works for everyone. That's our mission as it's stated right now. For me, that one, there are people who it works for, and there are people it doesn't work for. And so, how do we target our programs and services to make sure that it does work for those who are struggling right now? And the crux of that, in a large way, is that job piece, where we look at our business development efforts and our workforce development efforts. We're creating jobs, helping people to get into those jobs. And if we can do that effectively, it not only has the great outcomes for the individuals, it has a great outcomes for the whole. And so for us, the challenge we're facing right now as a city is that Denver has a reputation for not being a business-friendly city. We've seen 20 years of economic growth from 2000 to 2020, and a lot of that offered opportunities for maybe our legislature, maybe our city council to be able to, put in more rules and regs, and we've seen a lot of that kind of pile on over the years. Things have become more of a challenge, where it used to take maybe 3 months to get a permit. Sometimes we hear folks saying it takes a year or 18 months or even 2 years. And that, to me, is something that we have to overcome. We have to be more efficient as a city. We have to be more responsive to the needs of businesses. And we really have to focus on how do we be more customer oriented and treat our businesses like customers. And so, what I'm proud to say that the mayor's done earlier this year in May was really sign an executive order to launch the Denver Permitting Office. And the goal of that is really twofold. One, it is to be customer oriented. It's to change the way we deal with businesses to really say, "Hey, you're a customer. We have to deliver a service to you. We need to be responsive to you." And sometimes we've heard on that the opposite exists, that it goes into a black hole and then you can't get any customer service on the other end when you're issuing for a permit. So we want to change that narrative, and having really kind of focused customer orientation is key to that work. And then the other side of it is to be predictable. We don't want folks to be waiting a year or 18 months or 2 years to get a permit. We wanna know exactly how long it's gonna take at the maximum so that you can. We've put in this 180-day kind of shot clock. When you enter your application, it's our job at the city, when the permitted applications are with us, to complete that process in 180 days on our end. So again, it puts us into a situation where we need to be predictable, we need to be customer oriented, and that's how we're looking at everything that we do with regards to businesses. One of the areas that I'm looking at when it comes to our new strategic plan is really focused on this idea of business acceleration. How do we be somebody who's accelerating the pace of business in the city? And so when I think about that, I think of how do we look at all the things that are making it more difficult to do business right now? How do we prioritize those about what have the biggest effect? And then how do we come up with a solution or a best practice in another city? How can we bring those into Denver? One of the ways we're addressing that right now is with food and beverage. We've had a lot of conversations with the food and beverage community, our restaurant community. We've seen a lot of restaurants close down in the last couple of years. There's a lot of reasons for that, mainly because costs are going up. It's harder to do business with the restaurant industry. A good restaurant makes 5 cents on the dollar at the end of the day. And so when we start adding more costs that we all are seeing, whether that's food costs or specifically with labor costs, we've seen the tip credit issues at the state level, it makes it really hard for folks to do business. So we've been partnered with Visit Denver, bringing in a food and beverage consultant, and we're specifically trying to say, help us understand where the pain points are, where best practices from other cities exist, and let's implement those here in Denver. We want to be a city that's known for our food and beverage. We want to be a city that's known for cultivating restaurants and bars and creating that economic engine, because they're really important to not only our economy, but they're also important to our cultural fabric. Living in a great city is a place where you can go to good restaurants, have good food, and be able to afford it. I don't live too far from here. My wife and I and my kids, we come to Cherry Creek often. Great restaurants, great food scene here, and we need to nurture that and cultivate it and not take it for granted. And so that's what we're working on right now, and we're hoping to announce who that food and beverage consultant will be in the next probably week or two. So more work happening on that, but that's just one example of how we're really trying to address it. The other thing that we're really focused on as well, in terms of business friendliness, is how can we invest in our businesses as a whole and invest in economic growth. And so we're seeing that in a couple ways. One, you guys probably heard about the Downtown Development Authority. This is a major initiative to bring in almost $600 of tax increment financing that we received from the development of Union Station to be able to invest that into downtown. We talked about downtown, the need to change perceptions, the need to change the trajectory of where downtown is. I love downtown personally. I first lived in downtown. I first worked in downtown. I've worked at CIA. So I know what downtown can be. And I know that through COVID, construction on 16th, plus the camping that we saw for downtown, it's had a dramatic effect, not only on the overall feel of downtown, some of the vacancies. I think the biggest thing is the perception of downtown. And so we're working hard to really reverse that trajectory. The mayor's installed a new downtown safety plan. We've got 10 new committed patrols that are downtown. If you guys do spend some time down there, I don't think there's a time of day in which you can go down there and not feel either a police presence or a safety presence. And we need to slowly over time, or hopefully quickly over time, replace that with just more people. Because when we have more people downtown, we have a greater sense of safety, and typically some of the riffraff tends to leave. And that's just been the nature of any downtown in the world. And so we're seeing that though, and I would encourage folks to get downtown. I was just walking yesterday on a Monday, which is typically not the busiest day downtown. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so not even at the lunch hour, and the streets were just full on 16th. So we had our kickoff weekend at the very end of May, and it was just awesome. I think filled my bucket up to be able to see so many people downtown enjoying that atmosphere. We had 70 local vendors. And so a big part of what we're focusing on is one, utilizing those ZDA dollars to help foster more private investment. So we want to leverage those dollars for more private investment, either on new housing, new businesses, and then couple with that at 16 specifically and saying, how do we make 16th awesome? Like even before the pandemic, 16th was all right. It didn't really have the dynamic, magnetic engagements and places that you wanted to go and tell your friends when they come to visit, you should go to 16th because it's got all the best there. So that's what we're trying to cultivate. We don't have the control. We don't own all the properties. We don't run the businesses necessarily. So, but we're trying to do that by making it easy to do business, by offering incentives, by doing a program called express permitting, which you can get your permit done in 4 weeks if you're opening up on 16th. So, and we're talking to all the property owners, and then we're actively recruiting businesses, the kind of businesses we want to see. So one of the tactics we're taking on is saying, what are the best local businesses here in Cherry Creek? What are the best businesses in our neighborhood? Like I live just south of here a little bit, and every once in a while, when I do have an opportunity, I go to like Ave Suite. Right? That's a great example. And I'm not saying that they're moving to downtown, but that's an example of a local business, established brand that we know about. And how do we bring those only in Denver, the great parts of Denver, onto 16 to really showcase some of them for not only for us, but for all those people who come and visit. We have 500,000 folks who come to the convention center every year. We've got 6 million folks who come to our sports games every single year. We have 800,000 that buy tickets at the Performing Arts Complex, which is the second largest in the country. So we've got all these great assets in downtown. We just need to make 16th Street a part of that experience and make it something that you're going to want to come down to and want to see, and that's going to take time. But we've got great partnerships with the DDP and the Downtown Denver Partnership to help achieve that goal. We've got some dollars in place, and I think we have that spirit in Denver that makes Denver great because really it's not going to be what we make it, it's going to be what we collectively make it with the business community and with our residents, with folks spending time and money downtown. If we all want to avoid downtown and tell everyone don't go to downtown, that'll be the result of what we end up seeing downtown. It'll end up being a place that doesn't have businesses and doesn't have places we want to go to. If we go to downtown and we create more of a we have foot traffic, when those businesses that I bring and tour downtown and I walk downtown, they're going to want to open. Uh, evangelize our city and make it into something great. And we've got a great opportunity. I mean, there's not too many chances when you have 30% vacancy on 16th. And so we can actually change the narrative of what 16th is because there's an opportunity right now to do that. So that's a big part of an example of our work in cultivating that that opportunity with downtown. But really, we're working across the city, not only with our nest neighborhoods, but also with our programming. And kind of one of the things for previewing you guys as our strategic plan changes, one of the areas that we're really going to hunker down on and focus on is small business. That's always been a focus of ours, but what I feel like is that there's a lot of resources that exist for small businesses. Sometimes they're offered by our banks, our institutions, nonprofits have a lot of these programs. The state has some programs. The city has some programs. We have a small business development center that exists in each of our communities as well. And what I find is that it's even harder to be able to navigate where you can see what. And so what we want to do, we want to bring all of those together, whether we're offering it, whether somebody else is offering it. How do we make it as accessible as possible for the small businesses, both from a technical assistance standpoint as well as a financing standpoint? So we're working right now to launch a new program called Build In, which is utilizing some dollars that we have available to be able to offer low interest loans for small businesses. Quick, easy, accessible, especially for those who've had a hard time accessing capital, either because of bad credit scores or because of lack of collateral. We want to make those loans more accessible for folks and be able to have financing to be able to start your own business, and then couple that with the technical assistance and mentoring relationships that you need to be successful as you're going forward. So we're working hard to build out that strategy right now, and it's going to be a key focus of ours, something we want to offer citywide. The last thing I'll mention is that we're continuing to try and progress. So I mentioned the permitting office. We also, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Energize Denver. This is something that's gotten a lot of attention in terms of property owners. With spaces over 25,000 square feet, you're required to hit certain energy and carbon reductions in your footprint. Buildings comprise some of our largest emitters of carbon in our atmosphere. And so there were goals that were set out as voted in by the people. We've relaxed a lot of those rules and regs. We're giving our property owners more time and different ways of achieving some of those goals because it's proven to be very difficult. And in the commercial real estate world that we're in right now, we don't want to add extra costs to folks who really can't even. We see a lot of buildings actually going back into receivership because of the lack of folks going back to the office. And so we want to extend those timelines. We want to make it easier and more customer friendly to be able to achieve those goals and really be a partner in that effort. And so again, trying to make an easier regulatory environment to do business. That's the key goal. And so Dito is really helping with that. We try to be the voice of the business. And part of what I talked about earlier in terms of that acceleration piece, the goal of that work is to just look inside the city. You know, when I took this job, I said the biggest problem doing business in Denver is actually the city of Denver itself. And so we need to do a better job of fixing our own problems to make it easier to do business. Mayor's with that. And so that's what that accelerator piece is. Solely focused on looking inside the city and being able to address the problems about what it takes to do business. So, but Cherry Creek, I know you guys are working on a general improvement district. I just want you to know Kyle was going to have me talk about this. Councilwoman Sawyer has been working on this diligently. Just reached out to me and said, please don't talk about this yet because we're not really ready for prime time. So I'm going to hesitate on that. What I will say is that, you know, a general improvement district can be a very effective tool where you can bring the business community in and have a formalized role of kind of putting dollars together and strategies together for being able to improve your area and being able to improve the ability to do business. You know, the work Dito does with a lot of our both bids and JIDs around the city, our business improvement districts and our general improvement districts. One example of that is the Downtown Denver Partnership and how they run the bid for downtown. With that effort, they're able to collectively pool money and pay for private security, pay for the cleanup, manage the 16th Street, be able to really make downtown a great place and use those resources effectively so it's easier to do business. Similarly with a JID, same idea of being able to pool resources to be able to achieve those goals of kind of more of a private sector effort than a government effort to be able to do some of that work. So I did want to mention a little bit of that. But overall, really, I go around the city often and just talking to folks about what are your pain points, what's your struggle, what can we do as a city to make business easier. We're always recruiting businesses to come into Denver. We're always helping to grow our businesses here as well. And so those efforts will continue as we continue to move forward. But really appreciate you having me here and want to answer any questions that you guys might have or that I might be able to answer on anything city related, but specifically with economic development. Yes. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. So the question is kind of what's the future for Civic Center Park? It's been a place that I think all of us have loved. First of all, we're going to win more championships so we can have more championship celebrations at Civic Center. That's number one. I'm working on that right now. Definitely not the Rockies right now, but you know, we'll but yeah, I would say they've published kind of a next 100-year plan. And Civic Center plays such a crucial role for everything we're thinking about, not only for downtown but for the city as a whole. So a couple of notes is one, we've seen a dramatic increase of residents in Golden Triangle. That's that area just south of Cherry Creek. And so we've seen, and we're going to see, there's been 3,000 units that have come online. There's another 3,000 units slated to come online. So all of that traffic, how do we make Civic Center accessible for them and also a way to easily get into downtown? Because there's not a ton of businesses and services for all of those residents. And so we want to make Civic Center an opportunity for folks to have that great passage and connection from downtown to Golden Triangle because we have a great big new population in that area. When we look at Civic Center, I think one of the ideas that we've talked about a lot is, can we make Civic Center really our festival park for the city and county of Denver? So exactly what you're talking about, hosting events. We just had Outside Fest there recently, and you can see how it really is a magnet for those kind of events, concerts. So they have plans to really be able to put in some permanent infrastructure to host more concerts. They're also looking at the McNichols building of being able to put in some restaurant and cafe, some public restrooms, to really build the infrastructure so that it can function at a higher level. Because right now, a lot of the times you have to move in a lot of the equipment and move it out. The stage equipment, the music, the audio and the lighting is not really equipped for a lot of concerts. So if we can put that permanent infrastructure in, we can really maximize the impact of it, and also just maximize the utilization with all the surrounding neighborhoods from a transit standpoint. So lots of interesting plans. I would encourage you to look at what they published if you haven't seen it already. But a lot of that's underway right now. And I don't know if it was mentioned in the bond or not, but yeah, we'll see. Civic Center Conservancy is an organization that they don't necessarily manage the whole park as far as they do great. Yeah, Esther. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think ultimately we still know that downtown is our front door in many ways. It's a gathering place, especially for our visitors in Denver. You know, not only do we have all those folks coming in for the conventions, but we've got the A line which connects Union Station to our airport. We have 80 million plus passengers coming into the airport every single year, and about 30 million of those are coming in to Denver to spend a little bit of time. So how do we maximize their overall experience? And oftentimes it starts at downtown. So just from a visitor standpoint, we need to create and funnel and foster a great environment that's going to want people to stay longer, that increases the number who are staying in our town and want to see all that it has to offer. And so that front door is really important for that experience and being able to leverage it. Downtown plays a critical role with our economy as a whole. When we look at pre-pandemic levels, downtown's economy was generating about 13.5% of our total tax revenue at the city, and now it's generating between 8 and 9%. So that 4.5% drop translates to about $45 million for revenue for the city. So when we think about being able to make investments into our business community as a whole or into programs across the city, that decrease really affects our total economic output. I've heard it from a number of folks in the Cherry area. I've heard it repeatedly said that when downtown does well, it's better for Cherry Creek. When we have spillover from our convention traffic and we want to have hotel rooms taken up in this area, that helps Cherry Creek. When we want to be able to have visitors be able to experience restaurants in this area, that helps Cherry Creek. When we want to have folks to be able to come shopping, again, bringing them in through downtown and being able to connect them to Cherry Creek is a huge part of that. And I think they're different vibes. You know, Cherry Creek obviously has a specific demographic it's catered towards. You've got more high-end brands here in the Cherry Creek market, and I think that's great. And I think that's exactly where they should be. We are not trying to recruit high-end brands for our downtown area. And so to be able to have kind of different experiences in different parts of town, I think is really important for that dynamic experience of what we're trying to offer in Denver, and being able to cater and serve different customers is also really important. And so there's many ways they play off each other, and ultimately, it's great. It benefits all the surrounding neighborhoods, and has still Cherry Creek. I don't know if you guys feel that, but that's definitely the story that I've been told. But I hear from a lot of Cherry Creek downtown generally from a perception standpoint, from a kind of word of mouth standpoint of being able to get there and see. I would say that's the current phase we're in right now, is just spend some time there, host events there, be able to see for what it is now. And if you're a Cherry Creek business and you're thinking about a second location, think about downtown. If your business is growing and your business is accelerating, we want to help you. We've got incentives in place, and so there's opportunities to definitely expand. And the great thing about downtown is that it actually is something that we built our entire transit system around. When we talk about RTD, we talk about fast tracks, for example. That's a $7 billion investment. That's all geared around bringing people from all the surrounding parts of our metro area into downtown. So let's maximize the investment that we're paying for with fast tracks by ensuring that we're having a good flow of people coming into our downtown to experience it. So I think for right now, that's the biggest ask. But I think Cherry Creek should also just be really focused on making Cherry Creek the best place possible, because I do believe that actually downtown does benefit from a great Cherry Creek as well. Sure, we've seen some folks who are in office spaces move down to Cherry Creek because for a variety of reasons, but one of the things I hear a lot of is people don't feel as safe in downtown or haven't historically. And so we've seen some of that, but what's good for Cherry Creek is good for Denver as well. And so we want to be a supporter of Cherry Creek and improving this area. I see massive growth just across the street. I mean, every single block around this area is seeing dramatic. When we paint the picture for the future, we're looking at a lot of big projects that are happening right now in the city. Like when you think about Ball Arena, when you think about Park Golf Course, when you think about, potential new stadiums, our women's soccer stadium, Cherry Creek West is one of those huge developments as well. That's right up the street over here. And so we want to maximize the impact of those. Those are job creators. Those are bringing new units. Every new unit, whether it's an affordable unit or not, helps our housing affordability. So we need to be in the process and supporting of building more housing so that we can make Denver more affordable. Cool. Yeah.
One of the reasons that I moved the office from Denver was didn't feel like safe, and then part of it for my clients, and so and we were talking about supporting Denver, Cherry Creek. I think the main thing that we think of is the same thing.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Denver, for just a little more sketchy in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I for a long time too. I was there. 2021. I remember taking my son to I think we had the baseball all-star game happening by the ballpark, and I took my son down there, and the street was lined with tents. Did not feel safe. Did not feel welcoming. Did not feel like a great place to spend time. I felt that in a number of different parts of downtown, and then you go to 16th, and then the construction was there, and it was hard to navigate. None of it really felt inviting, and so I definitely know that that's the feeling a lot of people still have when they think about downtown. What I will say is, in terms of safety, is that one, we've seen dramatic reductions in safety from 22 to 23, 23 to 24, 25+% on property crime, on violent crime. All of those have been trending down. Now, coupled with that has been one, we've seen the JID in Ballpark neighborhood, which has been stood up. That has a 10-person private kind of liaison force that's working out in the community. But coupled with that is that safety patrol I mentioned earlier that the mayor has invested in, which is another $3 million investment. So, perception is reality. So I would just ask folks to go and see it for what it is today and see if that changes your perceptions on it, because it definitely had every reason for people to feel that way about being unsafe and feeling uninvited to downtown. That's all true. But I think it's changing, and I encourage folks to spend some time down there to see what it's like, because that's the only way I think you can kind of feel how it has changed. The new 16th Street construction that has completed is an amazingly beautiful public space. That's 400,000 square feet of our public realm that we've paid for. So we should be enjoying it and celebrating it. And then, the more we see people coming down, I think that's when you feel like this is a place I want to spend time. So for example, on that opening weekend we had just 2 weeks ago, it was just packed. I brought my kids. They had a great time. We spent about 4 hours just on 16. And we had 70 local vendors to look, shop, and I saw people I knew from around the city. And that's what you want with 16th Street in downtown. And so we're really trying to build that back up. And I think for us, we have to focus on how do we make it safe? How do we get great businesses downtown? And I think the ask for the public is, before we kind of maybe rehash some of the old ideas of what it was a couple of years ago, let's take a look at it for what it is today and make maybe a new idea or an opinion about where downtown is now. We still got a ways to go, still got a lot of vacant ground floor retail, but we have 6 new leases just on 16th that are going to be coming online. And we've got a number that are currently in the pipeline, so we're definitely trending in the right direction. Yeah. Parking is another issue. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the forecasted budget issues with the city
Sure.
this year, as well as next year, how it impacts your department?
Yeah, so the question was forecasted budget issues and what we're facing as a city, what we're kind of dealing with it, and how it affects us. So as the mayor announced, we're looking at basically saving about $50 million this year from our budget and about $200 million next year. So the city has grown dramatically. We've seen that. We've seen increase in revenue. So I mentioned earlier, from 2000 to 2020, the city grew by, in the metro area, easily 1 million people. And so that's also raised more revenue for the city and county of Denver. And we've gone up in staff to the point where now we have about 14,000 staff at the city and county of Denver. And that's not always sustainable. I don't think anyone in any company that I can think of has had nothing but sustained growth throughout their entire lifespan. And so just like any business, there's times out and opportunities for correction and course correcting, and also refocusing our efforts on what's truly most important. And that's the key part of this work on achieving those reductions, is how do we focus. So part of my work is that new strategic plan, and really I'm trying to get us focused on what are those core elements that are going to help businesses, help create jobs, and help people get into those jobs as really fundamental to our work. So it's again about focusing our priorities. And at the end of the day, we help generate revenue for the city. And so we also need to kind of maintain that focus that this isn't a time to move away from investing in businesses and supporting businesses. If anything, it's a time to lean into some of that work and to really make it more of a priority for the city. Because the more business friendly part of the reason why we're seeing the budget issue is because we saw from 2022 to 2024, 1,000 businesses that left the city and county of Denver. Last year, for the first year in a long time, aside from pandemic, we saw 10,000 jobs left Denver, the city and county, whereas every other city in the metro area had an increase in jobs. From 2012 to 2022, we had 200,000 jobs that we created here in the city and county of Denver. So we need to get back to that job creation and growth mindset. And so that's really going to be prioritized as we look ahead. But it's going to be a challenge because every agency is going to feel it. We're going to have to reduce some staff. We're going to have to reduce some programs. And we're in the midst of all that work right now. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I had some from my programs that I thought it was one of those moments where you just get out of your day to day and you go somewhere else and you look at how somebody else is doing and you have something click. So I had that because we went and actually looked at some of their small business development programs. So they have one called the Motor City Match, and they have another one which really invests in their community development corporations. This was a question about what I learned in the Detroit trip. And what was really critical for me was how they have brought in the private sector to help with small business growth. And so I think that's an opportunity for us, is not just to think of ourselves in a vacuum as a city and county of Denver in our program, but to make it something where we are a conduit of bringing everyone together, bringing the private sector, bringing in our banks, bringing in a number of our businesses, because they all have an interest in helping our small businesses grow, and being able to coordinate that in a way that's going to have maximum impact. So seeing how they were doing some of their programs with some of the ideas I had previously gave me a new vision for what we can achieve with some of our small business development work. The other thing was just, recruiting a couple billionaires to buy up all of our vacant buildings, which they did. I had 120 vacant buildings downtown Detroit, which is, remarkable. That city was at 2 million back in 1950, and we're at, 770,000 right now. So you think about where that was, and now it's smaller than Denver. It was at 2 million in the 1950s. All those buildings from the 40s were built up, and then we saw a big decline overall. And now the city sits at about, almost 700,000 people. So what do you do with that downtown? What do you do with all those buildings? And they've done a great job of buying them, doing some adaptive reuse. Some of that's applicable for us, some of it's not, because those buildings that were built older are far easier to do some of that adaptive reuse work. We also just need, a couple billionaires to buy up everything. Kyle, what are your thoughts? What did you take away from the trip?
Yeah, I'll stay on the topic of the billionaires. While I love the idea of billionaires coming in and funding a lot of programs, one of the challenges in Detroit was that they purchased a ton of commercial buildings downtown. Now, if Rocket Mortgage, dude, he decides, if he goes belly up, something like that, that is a lot of eggs in one basket, right? And so while it sounds great, I wouldn't necessarily say let's take all of upper downtown and have the Pennards buy all that stuff up, right? Because Walmart goes belly up, not that that's going to happen, but that could be a pretty big risk. The other thing is a lot of their challenges were in the residential neighborhoods. So entire neighborhoods, if a house was sitting empty for too long, they took it down, which makes sense. But you go into these neighborhoods, beautiful neighborhoods to be clear, right? Beautiful old trees, like Lost Park type neighborhoods, and half of the houses are just gone. Now, we don't necessarily have that problem in Denver. Our challenge is more on the commercial side, upper downtown, a lot of retail or commercial things.
Yeah, we drove around on a bus through some of the neighborhoods, and I was just Zillowing and seeing how they're all like between $100,000 and $160,000.
$200,000 will buy you.
Oh yeah, you can get a gray house for 200. So.
You buy the whole block.
Oh yeah, I could buy the block. But then I'd have to live in that humidity, which I was there for just a couple days, and man, I just cannot stand humidity at all. So, the weather's a problem. Any other questions? Yeah.
Really what's happening here in Cherry Creek, a ton of redevelopment, great big businesses coming in. But then, like I said, my biggest concern as a small business of where I can afford to be.
Yeah.
My client is not going to go shop downtown because I have a specialty service for homeowners. So this is really a great place for me. But is there anything, because the other thing I've heard is Cherry Creek is very much on the island. The city thinks we take care of ourselves. We have a bid, we have a lot of income here, but still our infrastructure, our roads, our parking are getting a bit out of hand as well. So I guess that's a lot in one question. But how can you help support that small business as well as bring in big business and support this little island that we are, that does need help with infrastructure as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely have to have a multi-pronged approach when it comes to business attraction and business assistance. So we want to be able to recruit businesses to think about Denver because it's a way for us to get more jobs into our community. But at the same time, the better jobs are typically